Good day, everyone. This is Marian Joy Faniza from BSED 1A, and for today's video, I am going to discuss to you all about the topic entitled Ideas and Term. First, let us define what is idea. Okay, idea. The term idea is derived from the Greek word eidos, which means image. Our mind contains ideas which are formed through our encounter with reality, with everything knowable through the human mind. This is the reason why idea is defined as the representation of the essence of a thing in the mind. Expressed differently, an idea is a mental or intellectual image or a picture of an object in the mind, which is the result of comparison, reflection, or abstraction. Being a representation of the essence of a thing in the mind, ideas always exist with due reference to reality. This means that the mind does not invent, set up, or make up ideas as if they exist on their own so that they are independent of any reality. Ideas do not float in thin air. They're always conceived by the mind with due reference to reality. Now, let us proceed with defining how our ideas formed. In the previous face-to-face meeting, we have already discussed that simple apprehension is one of the mental operations that the mind undertakes for purposes of achieving correctness of the thinking process. And it is exactly through simple apprehension that the mind forms ideas. But how does the mind form ideas? It is, however, idea It is, however, a settled conviction among philosophers, specifically the scholastics, that human knowledge begins with the senses. It was the progenitor of scholasticism, like Aristotle, who pioneered to spawn the dogma that it is through the senses that all human knowledge begins. This made the scholastics declare that with confidence that nothing can come to the intellect without passing through the senses. Now, based on understanding of how ideas are formed, we can now immediately formulate the concept how ideas is created in our minds. Let's start with the senses, then going with a simple apprehension, and then go with ideas. But how do the senses help intellect form ideas? If ideas are formed through simple apprehension, then asking the question, how do the senses provide the intellect with idea, is to raise the same question. Thus, how is simple apprehension formed? Logicians are quick to say that simple apprehensions is formed through the following processes. We have first sensation, second attention, third abstraction, fourth reflection, fifth comparison, sixth analysis, and seventh is the synthesis. Now let us discuss the first process of simple apprehension. The first is the sensation. Sensation, as already mentioned, whatever awareness that comes to man's external senses, namely sight, touch, hearing, taste, and smell, is a product of sensation. An interpretation of this information brought about by sensation is what we call the perception. Each of these external senses of man perform a specific function. This means that normally there is no mixing up of specific objects of perception. Man's sense of sight, which is the burst of visual perception, helps man perceive color, and etc. His sense of hearing, or the auditory perceptions, for perceiving sound, his senses of touch, or the tactile perception, for determining the texture of surfaces of objects as be they rough or smooth, his sense of taste, the gustatory perception, for perceiving whether the objects are sweet or sour, among others, his sense of smell, the olfactory perception, for perceiving odors of objects. Therefore, Through sensation, a person beholds a particular stimulus or phenomenon, or any observable thing as a sensible object. Next, let us discuss the second process, which is the attention. Attention. The mind does not end with the data provided by the senses. It attends to what the senses perceives. This means that a mind focuses or fixes its consideration on a single or multiple objects, and the mind thus is by the way of partial or complete exclusion of all other objects. Next is an abstraction. And by abstraction is meant an act by which the mind discerns the accidental and the essential notes, features, or aspects of an object. The accidental features, notes of a particular object are those which are part of the object, yet they do not make the object an object. Examples of accidental notes are color, size, shape, location, among others. These accidental notes do not make an object as it is because they are accidental notes are not necessary for the object to be an object. For example, we say, this small, square, and red table stands beside a chair. The table need not to be small in size, square in shape, or red in color, nor must it necessarily stand beside a chair. In other words, the table may be big or small, square or circular, red or brown, or it may stand anywhere else, yet is it still a table. As the mind discerns the accidental notes of a particular object, it also does the same with the essential notes or features of the same object. The essential notes are those which are necessary for a particular object to be that object. Hence, the essential features of an object are those which make the object as such. Thus, through abstraction, the mind discerns the essential features of a thing, leaving out the accidental ones. Next is the reflection. Reflection. This mental operation is also called the reflex mental activity. Accordingly, it is the turning of the mind upon itself or upon its states or acts. Through reflection, the mind studies or considers the objects or things objectively. Proceeding to the fifth process, we have comparison. Through comparison, the mind comes to a direct awareness of the likeness and the differences of the object of attention through which the mind has formed an idea. In the mental operation called comparison, it is the comparing of ideas in a mind which the mind attends to, and therefore not the comparison of external objects of attention. For example, we say gold and mountain. In comparison, the mind compares the idea of gold and the idea of mountain. Obviously, the mind can never come up with a conclusion in its comparison between ideas gold and mountain, if it does not have any knowledge of what is a gold or mountain. Presupposing that the mind has the knowledge of what is gold and what is a mountain, the mind can draw the likeness and differences between these ideas. Thus, through comparison, the mind distinguishes the relation between the ideas gold and mountain through their likeness, if they have any, and differences. Next, we have analysis. Analysis. This is an act through which the mind resolves an idea through the essential notes or features of a particular object. In analysis, the mind investigates those which makes up its idea of a particular object. Take for example, the idea animal. Here, the mind considers the essential notes, or those ideas that come together as they form a single idea. For idea animal, the essential notes necessarily pertain to bodily and living objects or things. Hence, the mind discovers that the makeup of the idea animal is that it must be bodily living, among others. And the last one, we go to synthesis. Synthesis. This is an act through which the mind puts together two or more ideas into one as it makes these ideas the essential notes of a single idea. For example, when the mind puts together the ideas red and rose, it grasps or understands only the essence of what red rose is and not the separate ideas red and rose anymore. Thus, the mind performs a synthesis. Synthesis from the word synthesize means combine. It must be borne in mind, however, that an idea or mental image is not exclusively formed by external senses of a man, because a man's internal senses, specifically memory and imagination, are also capable of having mental images. Therefore, we can say that an idea or a mental image is a representation of an object in the mind. Whether this representation is acquired by a man through one or more of his external senses or through his internal senses, namely memory and imagination. Through his memory, man stores the ideas in his mind, and through his imagination constructs images of objects in his mind in the absence of objects. Accordingly, the result of imagination is what logicians call phantasm, which is a concrete and a sensible image drawn by the mind from a concrete and a sensible object. Inasmuch as phantasm is a single image that pertains to an individual, specific, and concrete object, it does not cover all of the objects or universal objects. This means that a phantasm of a man refers to a specific man, human person, or human being, be this human being a father, a mother, a son, or a daughter. On the contrary, an idea or a concept is universal. It applies to all individuals or class of entities. For example, we say man is a rational animal. This proposition gives us the idea that as long as an entity belongs to that of a human being, that entity is rational. So, all fathers, mothers, sons, or daughters are rational because they are human beings. This is a valid logical postulate. In view of the foregoing discussion, we can say that since the sense image formed in a phantasm is an individual, specific, and concrete object, it is variable, meaning to say it changes from object to object, while in the case of idea, since the sense image form is applicable to all individuals or class of entities, we can say that it is constant. Thus, our idea of rationality is always applicable to all of the members of the human species.